Hello, everybody, and welcome to APES Topic 1.7, the hydrologic cycle. So, the hydrologic cycle is another name for the water cycle. Now, this moves water through the biosphere, and water makes up typically 50% of a typical mammal's body weight. Now, this allows essential nutrients to move between cells and draws nutrients into the leaves of trees. The important things about it is that it dissolves and removes toxic materials. It's an excellent mode of transportation, and performs many other critical life functions, not just only for humans, but for basically every species on Earth. The largest reservoir is oceans, the open ocean. Now, we're pretty familiar with the water cycle, how it works. We probably remember terms like evaporation, precipitation. Some maybe even remember different terms like transpiration and condensation. But let's revisit those terms. So, heat from the sun, again, sun is not just a source of solar energy, it's also a source of heat energy, causes water to evaporate from oceans, lakes, and soils, meaning it goes from liquid to gaseous form. The solar energy provides energy for photosynthesis as well. And when plants perform photosynthesis, they release water from their leaves into the atmosphere. This is called transpiration. Now, water enters the atmosphere, and as it begins to climb higher and higher, it begins to cool and become clouds. And then the clouds then produce precipitation. So the formation of these clouds is condensation. That's when they become visible gaseous forms. And then they begin to form precipitation, which is going to come down as rain, snow, and hail. And some of that falls on land and some falls into the ocean. Now, water flowing on land can take one of three different pathways. And we can see it's not as simple as the water cycle we've seen in elementary school. It's a little more complicated. One, it may return to the atmosphere by evaporating or transpiration. Absolutely true. It can go right back to where it came from. The combined amount of evaporation and transpiration is often called evapotranspiration. So just be aware that that term when you see it, where it comes from. It's evaporation and transpiration measured together. Water could be absorbed by soil and percolate down into the groundwater. The groundwater is an enormous source of water for many communities throughout the world, and including the United States. Water underneath the ground that is pumped up through wells, sometimes in small amounts to just a single household, or sometimes to supply water to an entire region or community. Water can move as runoff across land surfaces and into streams, rivers, and eventually reaching into the ocean. This is where we talked about the other nutrient cycles. Different nutrients and sediments can be carried through erosion, weathering down into these bodies of water, and then that transports those nutrients and materials to other parts of the ecosystem or the world in some cases. Now, human activities have an immense impact on every aspect of the world and our existence, including the water cycle. So, harvesting trees from a forest can reduce evapotranspiration by reducing plant biomass. If there's not as many trees, there's not going to be as many plants, and thus there's not going to be as much transpiration. Now, if evapotranspiration decreases, then the runoff and percolation will increase. So, what does that actually mean for us? That means that fewer roots holding the soil to a mountainside can result in flooding and erosion. So if there's more erosion, that means more dirt, and not just dirt, not just soil. It means the nutrients are being washed away, so it makes it harder for other plants to survive and other plants to move in, which reduces the amount of food availability for different species. Now, on a mountain slope, especially because we build a lot of communities at the base of mountains and valleys, this could be dangerous because the roots hold the soil in place, almost acting as anchors for it. And when you remove those trees and thus their roots begin to die and rot, that means that soil is not being held in place as readily, and that can lead to landslides and devastating natural disasters, such as we can see here. And it occurs throughout the world. This, I believe, is a picture from Vietnam. Another impact is paving over surfaces to build roads, businesses, and homes reduces the amount of percolation in that given area. So when we put pavement down for our houses, building the foundation, for our driveways, for all the roads and parking lots that exist, this is going to increase runoff and evaporation, meaning that more water is then cycled back into the atmosphere, and there's more water and moisture in the air. Higher humidity means that it's going to be harder summers in terms of, especially where we live on Long Island, the humidity is going to increase. but it also is going to mean that there's more water in the atmosphere, which means that precipitation events such as snow and hail and rain could increase not only in frequency but also in amounts. For when like a hurricane moves through, if there's more moisture already in the air, the hurricane could have a larger impact. Groundwater isn't recharged as regularly as well, meaning that our drinking water isn't as replenished. And in many places, the wells can begin to run dry if the amount that's being taken out does not equal or is less than the amount being put back in. So over time, groundwater can begin to be depleted. And here we can see an example of erosion, a mountainside of after numerous trees were chopped down. It led to an erosion that also a big landslide that also killed a lot of healthy trees that were not chopped down. And this environment can take years and years to recover because that soil that's been revealed that was buried deep isn't necessarily very nutrient rich. So that means that plants can't readily move in. And this brings us into our topic of ecological succession, which we'll be talking about later this year. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.